Hello and welcome to episode 271 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is April 21st, 2025. Today I'm wearing two pieces that aren't that new anymore. I knit the loop in 2019 and the vest in 2022, so they're really old, but these are two pieces that I like a lot, but I don't wear them all the time. So the cowl is knit in a fair out pattern by Kate Davies out of one of her books, but in the book it's not a pattern for a cowl, but I think it's either a pullover or a vest or a slip over, something like that. But I just like the pattern and I wanted a fair out pattern for this cowl, so I just used the pattern from Kate Davies to put into this cowl. So there isn't a pattern for this, I just sort of made it up. And this was I think the first project I knit out of the Kaschmir yarn by Hansa Farm. Unfortunately, they don't produce it anymore, which is really sad, but I'm happy I do have the cowl, but I am sort of being careful with it, and I don't wear pink all the time. But the good thing about this cowl is I started just using the black yarn, and I knit a bit, then I purled around, so I get a nice line where this folds, so it was knit like this, and then I purled around, and then I did the ferrule. And I used the grey, the dark grey, the light grey, the pink, and just 2 rounds of black in the ferrule. So the middle row in the pattern is black, and the rest is just dark grey, light grey, and pink. And then when I finished the pattern repeat, I knit, I think, around in black, and then I purled around again. And then again, I knit the same height just in the black yarn, until the beginning and the end were the same length as the colorful part, and then I seamed it together with Kitchener stitch so that it is completely invisible. And this is the nice thing about the cowl. If I'm not wearing pink or if I'm wearing some wild colors, I can just wear this loop as a black loop. But if I wear something in pink like today, I can either wear the whole colorful part outside, or I can fold it in half if I just want a bit of warmth in my neck. And yeah, I really like this, and I'll talk a bit more about how to wear it once I've shown the vest. And the vest, I forgot to check the pattern name. A friend of mine knitted and I liked it, so I decided to knit it too. And back then the brushed alpaca by Hansa Farm was new and I wanted to try it out, so I knit the vest using 2 strands of yarn. So the colorful yarn that shows through is a sock yarn by Opal, and I used the same sock yarn throughout the whole vest, but for the main part I held it double with the light gray, and for the edges I held it double with the black. And the collar is knit double. I think you start here and then you knit outside. Is the whole thing knit top down? No, probably not. Probably I picked up stitches and then first knit the light bit and then the dark and sewed it down. I don't really remember, but you can check it in the pattern. The vest, yeah, I did a dark border at the bottom, and I really like this combination of the brushed alpaca and the sock yarn. The sock yarn gives it a bit more sturdiness, and the fluff of the brushed alpaca makes it really soft and nice. You can see that the brushed alpaca pills quite a bit, but that's because it's so soft, and it's, I think, quite natural for it to pill, and I don't mind. I still wear it. I still love to wear it, and with the gray and black it's quite neutral. With the collar I wasn't too happy with the fact it does sort of stand up a bit, but then it also tends to flop open, and I wasn't quite sure how happy I was about that. But I think the biggest problem for me is that it doesn't close properly. So if I had put buttonholes, it would probably be a bit too tight. And so I was quite happy to not have buttons, but I don't always like wearing it open. So today I wanted to put like a kilt needle, but I couldn't find one. So I just used a stitch holder needle. So I have them lying around everywhere, and that works really nicely. So it stays together and it keeps me warm. So that's good. This was the first and so far only time that I've combined the brushed alpaca with the sock yarn, but I do like the combination. I may do that again at some point with different colors, just because I really like how soft it makes the garment, and still it has a bit more, it's a bit, I don't know how to express it, but it's not quite as fluffy if I just use the brushed alpaca. Okay, about the cowl, I don't think that I swatched for this. I think I just cast on stitches, and I am quite happy with the width of the cowl. And I know that some people like it really snug and close to their neck, so for them this would probably be a bit too wide, whereas other people really like to have it a bit more open, a bit more air to their neck, and I like to have options. So like this, if I wear it like this, my neck's really nice and warm, but I do get a bit of air, it's not too warm. But if I get cold, which happens easily, I learned a trick from my sister, and she uses these little clips that you're supposed to put in your hair, and she often keeps them on one of her cowls like this, and then if it gets cold, what you can do is you just fold it down, and then you can use this little clip to clip it tight, and then it's tight around the neck, and it keeps me really nice and warm. And especially if I wear a jacket now, I could close the jacket and it would stay put like this. And if I don't want it like this anymore, then I just open it and I just hang this on the edge of my cowl, so it's almost invisible and I don't really feel it. And but it's there if I need it, and I think that's a really clever idea. And I have that on several of my cowls, so that I can wear it in different ways. Yeah, so that's everything about what I'm wearing today. Then on to finished objects. And I have one finished object today, and I did not cast on anything new last week. Really proud of myself, but it's not going to last because the specs for the socks of the new round of the Sock Madness were released several hours ago. So sometime today or tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, I don't know. But at some point we'll get the pattern for the fourth round of this year's Sock Madness, and then I will have to cast on a new project. But my finished object for today is Professor Fungi by Sarah Shearer. That's this month's mystery gnome. And we got the last clue for the pattern last week, so I don't really think it's a mystery anymore, and you will probably have seen him already on the thumbnail of my video. So this is Professor Fungi, and I'm really, really happy with him. I got a few things wrong, but that's okay. Gnomes don't have to be perfect, but I really, really like the way he looks. So, yeah, you've seen most of the parts already. I think the only thing that was missing was the hat, wasn't it? I think so. Anyway, so we have a bit of contrast color in the hat, which is quite fun. And then we have this tiny little bit of I-cord that's sewn down to just give this little thingy up here. And yeah, I got the placement of the beard and the nose are a bit different from what the pattern actually calls for. And the handle of the basket is sewn on the wrong way. But I just went from did what was written in the pattern the way I understood it. And then later I watched the video on how to assemble this gnome, but I don't think it's a problem. I really like those short rows in the body that sort of tilt the head this way. I really love the way this looks and this comes out. And at first I was a bit worried that he wouldn't stand up because the hat is tilted backwards. I was afraid he would fall down, but he stands quite firmly, which I like. I put the feet, as you can see. And of course, this little bracelet is not in the pattern. This is just one of my stitch markers that I got from a friend some time ago. And it just works so perfectly with this gnome. I had to give Professor Fungi a little bracelet. Very often with the gnome, Sarah Shearer recommends that you cut out something and put into the base of the gnome. And I'm usually too lazy to do that. So I think this is one of the reasons that my gnomes don't always stand up really well. But for this hat, you were supposed to cut something out to put into the base of the hat, so that the shape is a bit clearer and the stuffing sort of doesn't mix between the upper and the lower part. And because I did that, I decided to also cut something out for the base. And I think that's what helps the professor to really stand up really nicely. And if you look at the pictures on my Ravelry page, I have a few pictures of the professor out in nature, which I really like. And I did remember to put him in the finished objects thread for the mystery knit along, and also for April for this year's year of gnomes. Yeah, what else is there to say? The body is a leftover yarn, Opal yarn, and with this yarn I knit my very first round 1 Sock Madness socks 5 years ago, and this was the leftover that I still kept. The hat is a sparkly yarn by Woldackel that I had bought at some point and never used, so I'm really happy to have a sparkly hat for my professor. And the white is also some Woldackel leftover yarn, and then there was a fourth color. The beige color is just a solid color by Opal. Yeah, my Professor Fungi. I'm really happy with them. So on to works in progress. I have picked up 2 projects that I didn't show last week because I hadn't worked on them, but I picked them up again because I do want to finish them. And one of them is also a Sock Madness sock, and that was, I think, this year's round 1 sock. The pattern was called Day and Night, and the first version that I started knitting was this one. I used this beautifully soft merino yarn by Opal together with this solid color, and I started knitting the Day and Night sock, which have a right and a left half, and it's a really nice pattern. So if I fold the sock like this, you have one side like this and one like this. And I had almost finished the sock. I was just about to start the toe when I realized that I had made a mistake because I'd remembered the wrong number of pattern repeats for the leg and for the foot. And for the foot, because it was so short, I already added a few more. And but when I checked the pattern, I realized I'd also knit this bit too short, and I didn't want to rip everything out. So I started over, knitted in different colors, finished them, and got a spot for round 2. But then I had these lying around, and I did want to finish them or finish the sock. So I sat down and finished the first one. And so this is what it looks like now. This is what the toe looks like. And I finished it. It's a tiny bit, I think I made a mistake. This stitch looks like a mistake. This does not look like I got it right. But that's a good thing about knitting socks that are not part of the competition, so I don't mind. I knitted them a bit smaller than the requirement, minimum requirement, because they are not in the competition, but they are in a size that fit a friend of mine, and she I think she knit something out of this color. I'm not quite, I think or she plans to knit I think a cardigan out of this color, and so I thought it'd be fun if she had socks that went with her cardigan, so I decided to knit her size. And she won't mind the one stitch because it's on the sole of the foot. And while she wears the socks, she won't see it. Yeah, so I finished the first one and I started the second. haven't done a lot, but for me it's always important to get the start done, and then I can just keep knitting. I don't have to hurry with these, and but yeah, I do want to get them done at some point in time. So that's that for socks at the moment. And then the next project, which is also a small project on double pointed needle, but not with sock yarn, are my wrist warmers out of Hansa Farms lace weight baby alpaca yarn. So this is 400 meters for 50 grams. And I had started this as a project to knit during my holiday. And I started the first wrist warmer during the holidays, and I've now finished it last week. I made it a tiny bit shorter than the other lace weight wrist warmers that I knit with this pattern. So instead of having 3 whole repeats of that wave, I did 2.5. So that's 5 repeats of the chart. But I think it's a nice length. They're not too small. And I was sort of getting tired of it already, even though I have planned to knit 2 pairs because you need so little yarn. So I finished the first one and I started the second, and I do think this is a summer project because of the black yarn. Fortunately, I'm not using the black needles anymore. I've switched to the pink needles that I didn't want to take on the plain. But for here, they're a lot easier to work with. And I finished 1 repeat of the chart. And I am trying to knit 1 repeat or 1 chart for every day that I am at work, so that I'm in my shop. Excuse me. I'm pretty sure it won't work out every time. But if I try and do that, even if I do just 1 or 2 chart repeats every week, at least they will grow. And at some point I will finish the second one. And then for the second pair, I am planning to use a different needle size just to see what happens. And also for me, it'll be a tiny little change. And that always keeps me motivated if things aren't quite exactly the same. So that's that. Then we come to the shawl that I'm knitting. And again, I put in some work into the Opal Stole that I am test knitting for Deb Milstein. And I was trying to get to the half point so that I would get that done by the time that the test, it has sort of a timetable at which point you're supposed to have done the beginning and at what date you're supposed to be half through. And then at some point we're supposed to have the knitting done. So we have a bit more time to do the blocking. And I did manage to finish half the stole by the time I was supposed to have it done. And so these are the colors that you already know: 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that was the half point. This is half the size that the stole is supposed to be. It's a really nice big size, and I've added 2 more stripes. So the second to last that I knit was the Tiger colorway by Opal, and that was a leftover bit from socks that I knit for one of my nephews. This is a really old colorway by Opal. I've had this yarn forever, and I can't even remember what I knit with it, which is quite fun. Yeah, so I knit a hexagon cardigan with this color. This is the, I think this is the Hundertwasser colorway that I used for one of my pullovers. And again, with this one, I don't remember what I did. Yeah, but I really like the way the colors keep changing. I'm really happy with the black yarn in between. It does make the colors pop. I've almost run out, I've almost finished the first 100-gram ball of yarn of my main color. The pattern did say I need 2 of them, but because I've already knit more than half, I know that I will have some yarn left of the black, which is perfectly fine. I use black all the time, so that's great. Yeah, and I'm trying to work on it as often as possible so that I can keep the deadline for this test. And I'm already looking forward to washing and blocking it and to see what it looks like in its full beauty. And that brings me to the garments I'm knitting at the moment. And the oldest is the Advent calendar pullover. That was my New Year's cast on this at the beginning of this year. And I have actually finished the front and backs. And that's so exciting. So I started the pullover with the sleeve, then I cast on stitches for the front and back. I sewed the stitches together with the same neon yellow that I used to cast on. Then I knit the first shoulder, then split for the neckline. I use the same colors for the front and back, just because I had 2 balls of yarn for both of these colors. And now I finished knitting the second shoulder. So for the shoulder, again, I used a little bit of this color, then full 20 grams of this color, a full 20 grams of that color. And now I'm using a different color. Those 2 colors are quite similar, but sorry, this is what I have left to knit the sleeve with, because on this side I also use the same color for a bit of a sleeve and then a bit of the front and back. And I've now counted the rows and I have the same width for the shoulders left and right. And now I can put the front and back stitches on hold, and then I can sew them together with the neon yellow. And then I can resume knitting on the sleeve stitches, and then I'll go back to this knit 3 purl 1 pattern, and then I can knit the second sleeve. But I don't have the needle at the moment, and I'll show you where the needle is in a moment. So this will have to be on hold for a bit. The next garment, the next oldest garment, is my pattern battle vest, according to Tin Can Knits Vest Friends pattern. I'm using this Opal Abo, this Opal subscription colorway. And this is how far I have come. I think last week I'd only just cast on those stitches and did a few rows. So I added a few rows, not too many. This is rather boring stockinette stitch. And the pullover was also boring stockinette stitch. So, well, I put more effort into the pullover, but there I'm going to knitting in the round and it's not stockinette anymore. So there's a difference between the two now, and this has to go on hold anyway. So I hope to knit a bit more on this this week. I have put a stitch marker in between the 2 markers that show where I stopped increasing for the neckline, just to keep this from rolling so much, so you can actually see that this looks like a vest now. Now that I've started knitting both the fronts and the back at the same time, the size of the stripes is drastically changing. So the stripes were quite big in the front, they were a bit smaller in the back, but now they'll be like really small. But that's okay, that's what I like. And I just hope to get this sort of boring bit done as quickly as possible. And then I don't really enjoy picking up stitches, but at least that means I'm getting to a new bit, and I still haven't made up my mind on how to do the ribbing. So while I knit this, I can think about that and hopefully come to a decision before until by the time I finish the front and back. Sorry about me not finding words. So that's the second garment, and the third garment I have on my needle is the Multitalent summer pullover that I'm knitting at the moment, and I'm using this opal yarn with a bamboo content and these sort of rainbowy colors. So I have finished the first 100-gram ball of yarn. So this is the end of the first ball of yarn, and then I put the stitches on hold. I put a long cable into the stitches so that I can easily try it on. And then I picked up the stitches for the neckline. And I don't know if I've told you, but my sister's knitting the same pullover with the same yarn in a different color. And she decided to put a bit of a pattern into her ribbing. And I think it's the Old Shale pattern. I think that's the English name, in a variation. So she's not doing any purl stitches. but she did 3 pattern repeats for the neckline and then 6 pattern repeats for the sleeve ribbings, and she's planning to knit 9 pattern repeats at the lower edge of the front and back. And at first I had wanted to knit plain ribbing for the ribbing at the neckline, the arms and the front and back, but because she had pattern, I looked through my pattern books and then I picked a pattern from the Japanese knitting stitch Bible and decided to knit this pattern. So it's a fairly simple pattern. It has a bit of a lace pattern in between those twisted stitches, and then it has this pattern. I'm not quite sure whether that has a proper name, but those 2 patterns take turns. So I do one and then the other, and I keep doing that. And I also sort of did 3 pattern repeats. I had to knit a little more than 3 repeats, otherwise this like circle wouldn't have been closed. So I did a little more. And then it's always a bit tricky if you do lace pattern for ribbing because it tends to be too wide. So if I had cast this off very loosely, it would have probably folded out like this. So I did a few decreases in the pattern in the last round, and I cast off fairly tightly. So usually on a neckline, I would cast off a lot looser, but I tried to find the right point for this not to flare open, but also for my hat to fit through. And I'm really happy to say my hat does fit through. I've tried it on, and I'm really happy with the way this looks. Maybe it's a little busy for this colorful yarn, but I don't think it's too bad. And I'm really looking forward to repeating it on the sleeve. I've now picked up the sleeve stitches and I've knit a few rounds stockinette, and I will add a few more rounds. I probably have to try it on. I will probably also try my sister's pullover on to determine how long I want the sleeves to be. And then at some point I'll start knitting the same pattern, and then I'll do the second sleeve, and then hopefully have enough yarn left to get a nice length for my front and back. And then also add the pattern at the bottom of the pullover here. So really happy with this. Yeah, but this is the needle that I also used for the sleeve of my Advent calendar pullover. So that's one of the reasons I try to get a move on with this project. I always prefer to have the neckline first, because otherwise the length of the sleeve can be misleading. So if I didn't have the ribbing here and I finished my sleeve thinking it was that length, and then I put the ribbing in here, sometimes it just pulls it together slightly so that the sleeve ends up being shorter than I expected. With short sleeve, it's not too bad, but still I prefer to first do the neckline, and then I will really know how long the sleeves end up being. Yeah, so these are the garments I have on my needle, and I did not crochet anything last week. Unfortunately, I kept thinking about doing it, but then I never got round to doing it. So I am at the knit along now. Did I show everything? I think I did. And I am still working on my March socks. These are the socks. It's another Abo colorway, subscription colorway. And I am knitting the Estonian spiral pattern for March. And I finished the pattern part of this sock, and I finished knitting the heel. And I'm now at the very simple, just stockinette part of the sock, where I just knit the foot straight in stockinette and then put a simple star toe, and that's it. But yeah, really happy I finished with the pattern. I still really like how the stripes get broken up by this pattern. I think that's quite fun. And then once the foot is knit, then again you have the contrast of the stripes being broken and the normal stripes on the foot of the sock. So that's the March sock. And then for April, I did a video on how to knit Helix stripes. I'm so sorry, I still haven't translated it. I was just too busy over Easter to get it done, but I will really make an effort to get it done this week so that I can upload the English version of this tutorial video. But I did continue knitting on my version of these socks using those two Aquarell colorways. And this is what I managed to do last week. So the leg was already finished. I finished knitting the heel and then I went back to knitting stripes. So the heel was just done with the blue and white yarn, like the ribbing. And then I had knit a complete color repeat of the pink yarn up here. I hadn't realized that, but when I started knitting in the round again after the heel, I realized I was back to the green and yellow part. I finished that now, and I've just started knitting with the pink again, and now I'm looking forward to seeing if the soft pink again comes with the white, or whether the blue stripes will differ now because I've knit the heel in between. So it's always interesting to see and exciting, and I don't know what's going to happen. So I really like that. Yeah, so that was that. As I said, no crochet last week, but that was everything I knit last week, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!